District of Haverford Township. Would everyone please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. I will pass it over now to Ms. Saxa to go over our instructional technology plan.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Larson. We've got 3 really great presentations and 1 information item for you this evening. We're going to start with our instructional technology plan, as you said. I believe that Mr. Anderson and Ms. Hearn are going to lead the way, but I also see Dr. Wells and Ms. Corcoran in the audience, so hopefully they are participating too. Thank you all for being here this evening.
Good evening. There we go. Good evening. Thanks for having us here tonight to present all the great work that our Tech Plan Committee has been doing over the past couple months. We're lucky to have members of all of our subcommittees here with us tonight to kind of go through this. So Ms. Hearn, who co-chaired this committee with me, will start by going through some of the findings from the CCIU audit that kind of drove our development of these 3 focus areas. First, we'll have Matt Wells from our high school math department speaking about instructional technology tools and software and how we're going to evaluate them and professional development around them and everything. And then we have Jen Corcoran from Coopertown Elementary here to talk about purposeful screen time and how we're going to ensure that the screen time that our students are getting instructionally is intentional and valuable. And then we have Dr. Haran to speak about our digital citizenship and literacy focus area and talking about making sure that our students have the correct skills and awareness of being an online citizen. And then I'll come back and kind of talk about some of the feedback and timelines that we have around everything here. And with that, I will give it to Ms. Hearn.
Thank you. Hello. So this instructional technology plan was driven by data collected during the CCIU audit during the spring of 2024. Data from the audit highlighted both strengths and opportunities for growth in 3 key areas in Haverford. First was instructional technology tools was highlighted as a strength among faculty and staff in Haverford, with 87% reporting consistent use of technology during instruction and for collaboration. However, faculty expressed concerns about the lack of training or the ineffective use of specific tools and have requested targeted training opportunities and a structured evaluation plan for new tech tools and resources. Our second key finding from the CCIU audit was surrounding digital citizenship and digital literacy. 95% of parents support digital citizenship education, and 87% of our teachers reported that they actively teach responsible technology use in their classrooms. However, the implementation of a digital citizenship curriculum is varied across the district, with higher rates of misuse reported by the secondary schools. Finally, we'll be looking at screen time management across all grade levels, as 46% of families express some level of concern about time spent on Chromebooks, especially at the elementary level. Although findings show that parents are concerned about off-task behavior specifically, teachers do report high levels of student engagement and using technology to create opportunities for individualized student learning. These findings became the building blocks for the 3 focus areas outlined in the instructional technology plan, which you'll hear more about from my colleagues in a moment. This plan is meant to serve as a strategic framework for integrating technology in a way that enhances teaching and learning, supports equitable access, and prepares students for success in a technology-driven world. As technology continues to evolve, this plan ensures that instructional practices, infrastructure, and professional development efforts remained aligned with best practices in education. Alignment with our district goals was also paramount in creating this technology plan, specifically in these 3 areas. First was our preparing contemporary citizens, and we're looking at that through a digital literacy and digital citizenship lens. In alignment with our district's goals to modernize and expand learning experiences, we plan to implement a structured K-12 digital citizenship and digital literacy curriculum to equip students with the skills to safely, ethically, and effectively engage in digital spaces. And then our second pillar, social, emotional, and wellness, we're looking at through a screen time management lens, recognizing the importance of balancing technology use to support student engagement, but also well-being and social emotional learning. Clearer screen time guidelines and professional development for educators will ensure that digital tools are used intentionally and appropriately across all grade levels. And then we're looking at equity through a technology and innovation lens to ensure that all students benefit from technology-enhanced instruction. We plan to invest in structured, differentiated professional development opportunities to empower our educators to fully leverage the available technology, to provide multimodal learning experiences for our students of all backgrounds, to expand training on emerging tools such as AI and assistive technology, to further support our academic, technical, and career growth for all of our learners. So our first step in making this plan was to outline a shared vision statement and principles that will guide our decision-making, implementation, and evaluation processes. So the vision statement here, as you can see, aims to empower every learner with equitable access to innovative technology tools and foster creativity, collaboration, and critical thinking in a globally connected world, while enabling educators to purposefully integrate digital tools to enhance teaching and learning. So the guiding principles that we used throughout the course of creating this plan were the following three: equitable access and empowerment, to ensure every learner has equitable access to innovative technology tools and resources, to enable all students to reach their fullest potential regardless of background, abilities, or circumstances. Our commitment extends to fostering digital literacy and ensuring all students can participate in a technology-rich learning ecosystem. Our second guiding principle is fostering creativity, collaboration, and critical thinking. This plan will help teachers to leverage technology in order to inspire creativity, facilitate communication, and cultivate critical thinking skills. We want to prepare our students to thrive in a globally connected world. And finally, purposeful integration for enhanced learning. We want to support educators in the intentional and effective integration of digital tools to create engaging, meaningful, and innovative student-centered learning experiences. This includes providing strategic professional development opportunities, ongoing support, and access to research-based strategies to help educators use technology to enhance student learning outcomes. So with that framework in mind, I'm going to turn it over now to our first focus area with Mr. Matt Wells.
Thank you. And I also want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak to you and speak on something that's so important to the community in general. Excuse my nerves, this is the first time I'm doing this. When we met as our committee, we were focused on our goal being how could we enhance teaching and learning through the use of effective technology. So we broke it down into three different aspects. How could we assess the tools that are in use right now? And that being said, in addition, how could we look to fill the gaps between what we're currently using and what exists out there and to meet our goals? Second, professional development. Through the surveys that were mentioned, teachers found that to be something essential. And the admin has already taken steps in the right direction and finding platforms kind of like Safe Schools, if you're familiar with Safe Schools, where it's a complete list, a compiled list of where teachers can pick and choose what they are interested in. And that could tie into our Flex relatively easily. And then third, how are we going to get feedback from our teachers based on what we're using, similar to the professional development that's already in use, where we have surveys at the end, and how can we how can we choose those new tools that we're going to use. So one of the tools that we found to be very useful is for our teachers to be able to evaluate the current apps that are in session right now, and this luckily hit home really well based off of Tuesday's presentation with the new superintendent who mentioned that this need for technology in the school district. For instance, this could help us identify if we are currently using two apps that are serving the same purpose. And in addition, it could help us identify areas of need, those gaps. And when we do identify those areas of needs, we can use this is a very simplified version of our plan, but our plan to help us bring in and choose new technology, very similar to how we decided to go with our new phone system. Compile everything that we have based off of that need, what exists, what are the vendors, how are we going to assess our choices based off all that, like who's going to be involved in the process, what stakeholders do we need to have involved, based off all that combined information. What are the software, what are the apps that are out there? Are there more than 3? Can we get it down to 3? So we can have something that's more approachable, and then we move on to the last section where we use all that whole process that we have to be able to single down and pick one and evaluate with our tools. It's very exciting, and again, thank you for letting me be here. I'm going to pass the torch to Jen so she can speak on the next committee.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Jen Corcoran. I teach first grade at Coopertown, and I'm here to talk on the purposeful screen time part. You can see the list of names up there, and it's really nice. We had a cross-section of a lot of different grades and schools in the district, so it was really nice to have lots of different perspectives. This part of the plan was based on the American Academy of Pediatrics' new recommendation of screen time, which is quality over quantity. The plan will describe expectations and integrations of technology for students. Time on certain apps will be agreed upon between curriculum and technology, and that will be great for teachers and students. Screen time reflection. The plan will provide teachers with a checklist for educators to make thoughtful decisions regarding screen time for their students. This plan will also give high-tech and no-tech options in order for teachers to have ideas when making those thoughtful decisions. I just hit the middle? Cool. This is an example of a recommended app usage chart. And as you can see, it says the subjects, it's got the applications, frequency, length of time, and if it is going to be used for homework. So again, this is just a sample of a third grade recommended app usage chart. This is not what it will definitely say, but this is just an example of what it could provide. This will be made with collaboration between curriculum and technology and communicated with teachers to give teachers guidance on app expectations so everyone is on the same page. The plan will also provide a screen time checklist for teachers that includes questions in these topics. Does this technology elevate higher order thinking? The team found the SAMR model created by educational researcher Dr. Ruben Puentedora. This asks teachers, is this technology substituting, augmenting, modifying, or replacing traditional teaching methods? This question helps teachers think critically about how their technology is enhancing or transforming their instruction. The checklist will ask teachers, does this technology differentiate or personalize instruction in a way that a no-tech option could? It will ask, does this screen time encourage engagement in a way that appropriately challenges and engages students? Does it allow for collaboration with peers? In addition, this checklist will ask teachers to consider if students have the tech skills at that grade level to do that task. Or ask the students, does this tool enhance digital literacy skills for future uses? And with that, going to talk about digital literacy is Dr. Rand.
Thanks, Jen. Good evening. There we go. Like Jen pointed out, you can see the members of our subcommittee on this slide. Incredible people to work with, and overall, this committee, I want to commend both Meredith and Rob, like their leadership. This was a really fun committee to work on. Everybody was really actively engaged, and we got a lot of work done in a short amount of time, so just wanted to put that out there. Our subcommittee really focused on being intentional, the expectation for the teaching and learning for our students, staff, and parents, family members, community members. This slide just highlights the expectation of integrating elementary, middle, and high school teaching and learning, engaging our community, and we spent a lot of time discussing how we are going to hold ourselves accountable, and I think we probably spent the majority of our time talking about that because we wanted to ensure that what we were doing was sustainable and meaningful. Here's an example of a sample lesson, and this really was fueled out of the discussion about like what are we going to be doing, how are we going to be assessing our students, and how are we going to hold ourselves accountable. That top assessment highlighted in red there, that bold area, we hope to do a pre and a post assessment of our students, depending on what grade level they're in, and tracking, throughout the committee, like the work that we're doing and are we being effective. So that was really important to our subcommittee. So here's just a sample lesson of, a digital citizenship guideline and an objective and just how we might implement it. This is truly just a sample. This slide has a chart, and if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see the legend. The B is for beginning skill, developing skills, and strong skills, all based on, this is a standards-based chart. You'll see from beginning in second grade going up to 12th grade, our students will be beginning learners, beginning their skill development throughout elementary and middle school, developing and becoming more secure and more, stronger digital citizens. So this is what we hope for. I know that there's still some discussion, and I expect feedback, but I feel like our subcommittee and the committee overall has a really strategic plan in place. So I'm going to pass it back to Rob Anderson.
Thank you. So as we talked with all of the focus groups, or the focus area groups, kind of recurring theme that we kept hearing was that they wanted feedback from different groups. So rather than unintentionally bombarding people with surveys and forms and questionnaires throughout the year, we decided to kind of come up with a routine that we would go through each year to kind of spread those surveys and everything out and be kind of intentional with when they're sent out. So here's kind of an overview of that feedback routine we have. So in the fall, students would receive that pre-assessment that Dr. Ham was just speaking about around digital citizenship. Teachers would receive a kind of a needs evaluation as far as whenever we come out of the summer, there's always kind of new needs that have emerged. So finding out what those are to see if we need to shift any of our professional development or if any of our tools. In the winter, our intention would be to send a survey to all of our families, very similar to the one that the CCIU sent out, so we can kind of use that as a benchmark and then see if the programs we've put in place have addressed some of those concerns that were brought up during those surveys originally. In the spring, we would then kind of finish up with, again, another evaluation through the teachers to find out if the work we've done all that year for them has met the mark, if there's anything that they specifically liked or would like to see more from technology and the planning committee, and things that we may need to adjust. And then the students would get that post-assessment to again evaluate how the digital citizenship lessons have kind of shifted their thinking potentially throughout that course of that year. And then as Matt had mentioned, at the conclusion of any of our technology PDs, we'll use a similar evaluation that curriculum uses currently, with a couple maybe additional technology questions just to evaluate that individual session, see what kind of next steps people would want, if there's more information they look for from there, if they feel like they're good from that content, to kind of build that longer plan for us for professional development. Obviously, as we're talking about this, we're talking about a lot of data and a lot of evaluation and a lot of discussion, so kind of formalizing something that we've done somewhat informally, but creating basically a technology advisory council that would meet every other month and would then use the feedback that's coming back from the surveys, to create the professional development plan for the year, would then also, as Jen was mentioning, work with curriculum on the development of the screen time recommendations and apps, using some of the reports that we have from different tools and ClassLink and things like software like that we have. As Matt was mentioning, kind of reevaluate the usage of current tools to determine if there's underutilized tools or if the need for a replacement exists. And then, as we've mentioned frequently, a 3-year technology plan is a tough thing to predict for 3 years. So we kind of have set it up with an idea that we know we're going to have to make some adjustments along the way as new technology emerges and new needs exist and things like that. So the council would be kind of making recommendations as where those adjustments need to be made throughout the time. And then obviously last and potentially a large part of this would be planning professional development throughout the summer for our staff as well as into the next school year. And the council would be made up of kind of a cross-section of all staff, so from teachers to administrators, classroom, counselors, just kind of make sure we have all voices kind of in the room as we are evaluating software and the plan. Kind of just going over a high-level view of the timeline, just as I mentioned, it's a 3-year plan. Still kind of want to get some starting in this school year, which would be the establishment of that council that I just mentioned, and then starting to put in place some communication out to our staff about some of the things that are to come as a result of the tech plan before they leave for the summer. In next year, we would then start the actual implementation of a lot of this with the feedback loops we discussed, as well as some of the digital citizenship and literacy lessons that Dr. Horan mentioned. And then as we move into year 2 in 26-27, again, it's just that continual evaluation of what we're doing. Are our tools continuing to work as we expect? Is the professional development meeting the expectations of our staff? And then, as Matt had mentioned, kind of evaluating the potential need for a kind of an asynchronous or an online training platform to supplement what we're doing in person. If we can't, we're not going to possibly be able to deliver lessons on everything that our teachers may want, so we may need to supplement it with an additional kind of ready-made content. And then year 3 is kind of the year where I'm kind of anticipating potentially the most need for some reevaluation and adjustments as we get there. So again, just kind of, we've established those feedback loops that we've discussed throughout the previous 2 years, and using the information coming from our families and students and staff to make sure that that 3rd year of the tech plan is still providing what our district needs. And then similarly to when we were here before and gave the AI working group update, and I kind of tacked on a little bit about the tech plan at the end, I just wanted to give an update on the kind of where we are with the AI working group as well. We were lucky to have A.J. Giuliani came in and presented on the in-service day on February 18th. In the morning, he presented to our secondary teachers, and then in the afternoon, he did a session with our administrators. Feedback from both was very positive, which is very encouraging. I think everyone was very engaged with him. He's a very engaging presenter. And then currently the working group's working on maybe some more targeted professional development around AI. Some of the feedback we've received is that they want the teachers want some training on individual tools and how they might utilize them in their classroom or in their work with some more specific use cases, so we're working on how that might look. And then obviously starting to turn our attention to students potentially using AI, finishing out some of those lessons to have that can be delivered to the students around what AI is, some of the ethical concerns, environmental concerns, biases, a lot of the similar content that we've given to our teachers, but in shorter snippets for the students so that we can then feel confident when teachers may start asking them to engage with AI in their classwork. I have one other slide that's not in the PDF that was uploaded. I just felt that it was some interesting feedback to also provide. We did do a survey after the presentation on the February 18th. On the left was a survey that we sent out to the teachers. This was one of the questions. I just thought it was interesting to show. We're basically at about 50-50 from teachers that rarely or never use AI and teachers that use it kind of once a month or more frequently than that, which is probably about where I would expect our staff to be at this point. Half are comfortable with using it and half are still pretty hesitant with it. On the right, it was just some feedback from the administrative team on the presentation from AJ Giuliani, and overwhelmingly, most of our administrators reported that the session was very valuable and that they had some takeaways that would be helpful for them in their daily work. And again, I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to have us and our team here to share the tech plan with you guys.
Did you say you felt attacked at the last, is that the word you used? Attacked? You said the last AI briefing you were attacked?
No.
Meeting? Oh, okay.
Attached.
Oh, good. I was like, what happened?
No,
I missed, literally. I'm like, thank God this is a
No,
committee meeting.
I apologize. I said I tacked it on to the end, so I apologize.
Okay,
It
good.
definitely could sound
Listen,
like that.
I truly do have hearing impairment, so please forgive. Hey, what I wanted to say was, I like the timeline in this one. That is much improved from the last plan. So I was going to say, you heard something, because we were kind of confused about like, what window of time does this happen? So I like feeling like this is kind of fluid, so you'll be addressing it, but you do have an eye on the prize and an awareness that 3 years, this may all be a moot point. Okay, well done, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I enjoyed all the information shared. I have a couple things. One is that I really, really like the recommended app usage chart. I think it's just a great way to have, and I realize it's just a sample, but I mean, to see the apps that's used and how it's used. And even I could imagine like a back to school night, or whatever our schools are calling it, just to show parents, these are the apps we might use, this is how we might use them. I think that sometimes it can be overwhelming if you're receiving what feels like a new app every week, when in reality, these were the only apps we had planned anyway. So if we have a game plan going into it, I think it's really great. I also would imagine that it's useful for our teachers just to have a plan consistently across how we might use these apps and how it could be useful for our students. So I really enjoyed seeing that chart. I like the idea of the Technology Advisory Council, and so hopefully we'll get many updates at board meetings. And again, if there's any way to give brief commercial breaks, one-liners, something on our website to allow parents to know, this is what we're thinking about, this is what we're working on. I know that we get feedback oftentimes from the community, and it can sometimes feel like they're not receiving information back. And so the idea that we have an active council looking at these topics and actively working on it, I think that it'd be great for us to find ways to share when possible. My question is, and this might be more of a question for Ms. Axa, but we'll see where it lands. So I know we talked about early on in the presentation finding ways to increase the professional development in terms of, and I think I'm hearing that teachers are identifying this is something that we need. And so in general, is there a targeted plan for professional development? Is it more based upon hearing from the need from teachers? Is it a combination of both?
Yeah, it is a combination of both. I will say we continue to get mandates from the state about training that needs to occur. In the last 5 years, we've probably gotten 7 more hours of professional development that's required now. So part of it's that. We do a professional development needs assessment every year, and we use that to inform what are the types of sessions, what are the topics of sessions that we will be offering, and a little bit of like when would people prefer to be flex or that kind of thing. And then whenever we have an initiative or like a curriculum development, there's required professional development. So Wit and Wisdom PD has pretty much taken up the whole thing for elementary this year. But we really try and preserve what are called the flex days. So teachers typically have about 10 hours that they can do either outside of school time, or they can come and report on the flex days and do the professional development there. And that's where we're able to get a lot of very differentiated professional development, lots of opportunities. Maybe it's after school in person, maybe it's something online. And that's some of the tech PD, because people are looking for such specialized information and kind of want someone to sit next to them, you know what I mean, reasonably so. That's something the team has been talking through, how do we do that? But we're also trying to preserve, like, can we get at least a half day every year for this or something, because it really is an ongoing need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, just a couple questions. Agree, it's a great presentation. Thank you for all the information. Let's see. In terms of the recommended app usage, where did those numbers come from? How is that determined?
We'll work with curriculum. Most often, the software vendors will provide some recommendations around if you want to get the best impact from that piece of software. There's usually a recommendation about how much time and how frequently students should be engaged with them.
Okay, so the usage is tied to efficacy of the program. Another question, can we get Zern without tears? Does that exist? Because I don't know about this 20 minutes. If I can get that done in 20 minutes with my daughter. Anyway, okay, so that's helpful to know. And then is there tracking either on the teacher's end or on IT's end of our students actually meeting those minutes? And then, so if efficacy is that level of time that should be reached to have some sort of efficacy, there's like data that then supports the students making progress as a result of them engaging with this app or this tool.
Yeah, I believe most of our curriculum applications give teachers reports about how frequently students are engaging with the tools and amounts of times on platforms and stuff, so the teacher should have the information as far as little Susie's on it for 20 minutes and Bobby's on it for 30 minutes and have that kind of information to maybe adjust if a student needs to use it more or less.
And that would be part of the rubric as well, in terms of does the app provide that for us? And if it's not providing for us, then it's probably something that we want to search for something else, and we move on to the second stage of finding something new.
Okay, that's really helpful. And then in terms of digital citizenship, this is very exciting. Is there a curriculum or set of standards that we're drawing from? I know New Jersey recently passed a set of, I don't know if they actually have a set of standards, but they're now mandating the instruction of digital citizenship. I don't think PA has anything. I guess, are we kind of coming up with these on our own? Is there?
No, so these were the curriculum and some of the lessons were built off of ISTE standards. So ISTE has started to develop a digital citizenship curriculum that they've made available on their website, and some of this was based, pretty largely on the content and suggestions that they had within that.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, and I think that's it for my questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much to this team, and I neglected to say Dr. Haran was a part of the presentation, so forgive me. Really nicely done. Thank you for bringing that information. We appreciate your time and being here this evening. Okay, up next, we are going to turn to our science audit update. Very exciting year for science. It's sort of the year of discovery, and we know how scientists like to discover. So they've been assessing our own systems and looking outward to determine what our next steps are for our science curriculum. And to share with us this evening, we have Dr. Jeff Nesbitt, who is our K-12 STEM supervisor.
Good evening. Good to see you all. Happy Thursday night. The science audit, I guess about 2 or 3 years ago when the state finally decided to update their standards, this is the year that they're actually in place, but we haven't been tested on them yet. And so this year, we're going to be tested on them, sort of. They're going to be sort of sprinkled into the testing this year, but it's not going to count. And then next year is the first that they're actually testing officially on the new standards. The last time we went through this, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we were looking at the next generation science standards, and fortunately, I was actually part of many of the Pennsylvania committees that were forming the standards, and they call them the STEEL standards, but they really are very much aligned to the next generation science standards. So we did sort of align in the past, and then we knew we had to make some changes and adjustments and started to make some of those adjustments and are continuing to. So this is just sort of an overview of the entire process, what we've done so far. It involves surveying teachers, it involves looking at the standards and looking at what our present curriculum is, it involves surveying students, it involves surveying families, and it also involves looking at what are other schools doing. So I talked about this a little bit. STEELS is Science, Technology, Engineering, Environmental Literacy, and Sustainability Standards. And again, it is similar to NGSS. If you go through it very, very detailed, there are some places where it's a little bit different, but it does line up pretty well. This year, like I said, they're piloting questions. They have moved the exam from 4th grade to 5th grade, but we really haven't seen test sample questions yet. So we're going through all this work, we're aligning our curriculum to what we expect it to look like, but until we start seeing how they're asking students to give them the knowledge that they're learning on these standards, I think we won't know. We'll know more once we start looking at some of those sample questions as to how well our curriculum is aligned to it. So we decided several years ago that at the elementary school, when we went through the last science audit, we basically had different science kits in nearly every building. Some were made by different manufacturers, and our goal last time was kind of to get everybody in every elementary building to be doing the same science kits. But we recognized that those science kits weren't entirely aligned with NGSS. At that time, it didn't matter that much because the PA standards was from all the way back in 2001. They literally still had like photocopying and transparencies. Familiar with the transparency was part of the science standards. So, but when the state first moved towards the STEELS standards, we decided it made sense to start purchasing elementary science kits that were aligned to NGSS. And I've spoken about that a couple times to you guys and also at the public board meeting. So the timeline here, we now pretty much have the green kits implemented, the blue kits implemented, and the purple kits will be implemented next year. The very last kit, the yellow kit, is the engineering practices kit, and we're still figuring out how much of those engineering units will fit because we only teach science opposite social studies. So science really only gets a half year of instruction, and each one of these kits can take a month and a half to do. So we're really going to try to make sure that in 5th grade we definitely have an engineering kit. We don't know whether we'll be able to roll it all the way back to 1st grade, but we want to make sure that we have some engineering kits at some point for all the students. That's still to be evaluated, how much that fits, and that's sort of also looking at what are we doing in social studies, which is also going through an audit next year. So this is just an example of the elementary standards. I don't have the vision to see up here, but I'm pretty positive that these standards are about motion because as a previous physics teacher, I always pick the standards that are most related to physics. So in 3rd grade, students are supposed to understand motion, what types of things impact motion. This is an example of what the state standards look like, and then this is one of the units that we purchased a kit from the Smithsonian Institution. All of our kits were designed by the Smithsonian. It's, an adjunct of the museum, but it's by the Smithsonian, aligned to the next generation science standards, and fully aligned to these STEELS standards in grades 1 through 5. So the kit that the students are literally using is all about motion, and there's a question that is, what types of things impact that motion? So they would go through all sorts of questions and experiments to determine what impacts the motion of various things. At the secondary, we really went through the audit this year, and both 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and then our core science classes, which is engineering to learn, chemistry, and biology, they all looked at, okay, here's all the standards, about how much of these standards are we presently covering. And generally speaking, it was about 75 to 85% of the new standards we were covering with our present curriculum. So it was pretty good, but obviously they're going to write curriculum so that we get close to that 100%. And there'll be some procurement of some new resources in order to fill those gaps. That's next steps. That's what will be coming. But we're fairly aligned to the STEELS standards because last time we went through this, we aligned to the next generation science standards. Performance data. Obviously, we always want our scores to continue to go up. Generally speaking, our science scores are strong. We'd like them to be a little bit stronger, but they are, compared to the state, when you see the state 39% on the Keystone is proficient, and our Keystone scores year after year after year are some of the top in the state. Last year, it's 74.5%. PSSA, again, always very good. The state was at 54%, and the school was up at 76%, or the school district.
As you're clicking, Dr. Nesbitt, I'm just going to point back here. Congratulate all of our science teachers, because the end result, the Bio Keystone, we have been in the top 1% in the state for the last 3 years in a row, and that's only because we started looking 3 years ago. And not only that, but we do see that we are still in the top 10%, if not the top 5% for the other grades as well. So it's not that we have a broken system, it's just this is our continuous improvement that we're looking at.
Yep. So we also conducted a survey and asked parents, did you think that your students are going to be prepared for the next level of science? And overwhelmingly, they say yes. And then we also asked them whether it's appropriately challenging, all sorts of parts about it. And again, generally speaking, our science teachers get very, very good feedback by both parents and students. Obviously, the parents were given about 2 weeks to respond to the survey. It went out, through mass email and phone calls and stuff. The students are kind of a captured audience, so we got 1,336 students to respond, grades 6 through 8. And again, similar questions. Again, the data is very, very positive. About 75% or as high as 85% feel that they're prepared, feel that they're engaged, enjoy the content. There's always room for improvement, but generally speaking, with that large of a sample size, very positive results. We then also asked the high school parents, hey, we asked you, do you think you're going to be ready for high school? Hey, did middle school make you ready for high school? And again, the responses are all very, very positive. And we also ask if the students still like science. Of course, there are some that don't, but generally speaking, when you're getting 75 to 80% of your students saying in general they like their science classes, it's a very positive thing. Again, we ask them if it's appropriately challenging or too challenging, and again, generally speaking, it's all appropriately challenging. This was, again, the parents, which was 100 responses, and then we again surveyed the students and had about 600 responses, and again, all very positive results coming back from the students. I guess about a week ago, I was at a Science Honor Society breakfast where they were inducting over 100 juniors into the Science Honor Society. And again, the expectations are, A, they've taken a number of science classes, B, they do really well in those science classes, and then C, they have to commit to doing community service in science to remain part of that club. And they all turn around and help support Discover Day, like the next year, and they're all excited about that. And it's just, even myself, who, as a district person, high school kids come up to me because they know that I was at Discover Day, and now I'm at the Honor Society, and it's just, there's a very good cycle built in for kids to be successful and enjoy their science experience here. So we also wanted to check out what does science look like elsewhere. We went to Radnor Middle School, Black Rock Middle School, Fugit Middle School, which is the Westchester Middle School, and Westchester East High School, and Harriton High School. And basically we take 3 to 5 teachers from the middle school and 3 to 5 teachers from the high school and go and spend 2 to 4 hours at these schools. We contact the principal or contact the science department person, and they host us, and we have an opportunity to see classes and also have an opportunity to interact with the teachers at some point in time. And really, it was, again, a really positive experience, and generally speaking, a lot of the time we'll leave these things, and like the chemistry teachers have exchanged emails with the chemistry teachers, and the 7th grade earth science teachers have exchanged emails with the 7th grade earth science teachers, and they continue to collaborate moving forward and sharing resources and materials. we look at the curriculum, we look at the organization, and we look at the labs, and you can see all the different things that they noticed. Takeaways, they definitely, schools that are enjoying their science experience, and generally speaking, we pick these schools because they are successful schools. They're also getting very, very good results, and generally speaking, their kids are engaged. Many of them are using, teacher curriculum is the standard. Teachers are writing the curriculum. They use a textbook, but they're looking at the state standards and writing the curriculum aligned to that aligned to the Steele standards, and then use curriculum textbook materials to supplement it. They did notice that, in places where the class sizes were particularly small, it was much easier to do hands-on learning. So they definitely would love to have class sizes that are 24 or less students. Sometimes we get that luck and sometimes we don't. But that's definitely something that they liked. Over time, the high school also noticed that actually one of the science standards is the reading of science. And so when we were at Westchester, they noticed that that was a particular skill that they were really focusing on, where in class the kids were reading scientific texts and then sharing out what they had, what they were doing. So that was also a takeaway that some of the high school science teachers said that they wanted to reflect on. And also, it's not that we don't ask them to read, it's more the explanation of the reading live in class. So like, kids might be reading it for homework and then expected, to participate in the lecture the next day, but actually the skill of reading and explaining science demonstrated live in the classroom is something that they noticed as a takeaway. And also, one of the biggest shifts in NGSS is phenomenon-based learning. It really is just basically that you're starting the unit with like a ball moving, and that's the phenomenon that we keep reflecting back on, like, why was that ball moving? What was it that was moving that ball? So really making sure that your units are anchored to something that's a phenomenon, because, the joy of scientists of like, why does that work? Like, my daughter was taking medicine before coming here and her throat was burning. She's like, why is it burning? And goes down this whole thing of like, is it an acid? Why is it? And that's what the phenomenon-based science teaching is supposed to do, is it raises that question. If you take a walk in the woods and you hear a noise, what is it? So that's something that they've attempted to do, but definitely it's a struggle sometimes with some of the more complex units. You get into some abstract chemistry and the phenomena might not be as apparent as a ball rolling. So it's something that we want additional training on and more resources to look at. So the next steps, next year, the elementary will implement their third unit, and in fifth grade, they'll actually be implementing a third and fourth unit. The middle school is looking at textbooks right now, and by May, June, we'll be coming to you with a proposal for a couple additional resources. And then they will begin writing curriculum aligned to the standards, and basically their work next year will be to make sure that they close that gap of 25 to 15%, where we said only 75 to 85% of the standards was covered. We'll make sure that we bring that all the way up to 100% of the standards is covered. High school is looking at textbooks specifically for AP Environmental Science, possibly for physics and chemistry, and they'll be requesting those materials also in May, June. Again, they will begin writing new curriculum aligning to the standards, and one of the strengths of the high school science program has always been their electives that they offer. We just have an enormous catalog of electives, and they have some exciting ideas for additional electives they'd also like to bring forward to continue just making sure, like, environmental and sustainability, just there's so much in that world, and also engineering, there's so much in that world. So they have a number of ideas that they're thinking through, and that's, in the fall of next year that they would potentially bring them forward. And again, a continual review will be done both in the middle school and the high school and also the elementary school as the testing unfolds, and we really see what it really looks like. Anticipated kits. We've spent most of our money so far at the elementary level. Each year, we spend a significant amount purchasing kits. So adding just an additional kit to 5th grade, maybe to 4th grade, is still not cheap. That's why we did it over a 3-year process. The middle school is definitely going to be needing some additional science resources, and the high school will be needing some additional science resources. So that'll all, they're sort of wrapping that up right now, looking at all their resources, and don't have final decisions made yet, but that's all protected, or that's all been budgeted for next year, but that is expected costs. And this is just a last slide, just experts' best guess about what's necessary for the future. That's the presentation. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
First off, thank you for the presentation. I just want to make sure, I think earlier on you talked about there was a change from 4th grade to 5th grade.
Yep, exactly.
Can you just clarify that for me? I think I
Yes.
just,
So we talked about it whenever we talked about testing. I don't know whether I've actually highlighted it on a slide. So this school year, the state has moved the test from 4th grade to 5th grade. So our present 5th grade students in 4 weeks will be taking a science test. They took the science test last year.
Okay.
So they, yep, so those 5th graders, those lucky 5th graders get to demonstrate their scientific knowledge twice to the state of Pennsylvania. The test this year is the first time they've ever given it to any 5th grade student. So they have no curve, they have no data, they can't really grade the test this year. So it's considered a field test because it's the first time that 5th graders are doing that. The state has said different reasons for why they did this. When I was at a conference 2 years ago, they actually said the reason they put it in 4th grade was because in the state of Pennsylvania, science was not actually necessarily taught at all until it was tested. So there are some school districts where in 1st grade, students are only learning English and math and electives, and science is not a thing. So they put it in 4th grade because the sooner they had the test, the sooner students had science. That, as far as I can tell, at least for the past 35 years, science has been in 1st grade at Haverford. So that was, I didn't understand that thinking, but now they're moving it to 5th grade, and they are actually saying it is only going to test grades 3, 4, and 5. So science in 1st and 2nd grade in some schools may still not be there.
thank you.
Yep.
Do we have science in kindergarten? I'm looking at the kits.
We do have science in kindergarten, but we don't actually purchase kits for it. It's more a hands-on science. This is the weather. Because we only have science for 10 minutes or 15 minutes during kindergarten activities, we don't have enough time to purchase the kit for it. The kids take too much time.
And then I guess hearing that in elementary, science is about a half year's worth of content that students are getting. Has there been any discussion around, like, maybe once teachers are more comfortable with wit and wisdom, because that has so many connections to social studies and to science, maybe, like, doing some alignment and overlay with Steele's standards?
So unfortunately, yes and no. So there's definitely been some discussion about that, and that is something that people are going to look at moving forward as they go through, especially the social studies curriculum. Unfortunately, science is so hands-on at the elementary level that it is not, and it doesn't necessarily, unfortunately, line up easily with what is expected in 3rd grade and what the ELA is reading in 3rd grade. So they're not necessarily reading about motion, but motion really is a very specific 3rd grade science standard. So they're going to look at that and look at how things can be more integrated, and we'll just see.
Okay. And then question about the costs for the kits. Does that include replenishment over a certain period of time?
It does not. So those are all startup kits. When we purchase kits, so just a single kit can be, for one teacher, for one unit, can be about $1,500. That kit, generally, we purchase as a 3-use kit. So they can use it for 3 different years. And then the replenishment is fortunately a lot less than that. And most of our replenishment these days, it can literally be from Amazon or from Giant or from Lowe's. And it's not significantly, it's always built into our yearly budget of science supplies. And we never exceed our science supplies budgeting. It can be balloons and paper and pencils. The large majority is all reusable from those kits.
Okay, great. And then do you have a general sense, knowing that standards could change at any moment, how long these kits will last?
Well, the last kits lasted for over 20 years. And
Probably too long.
yeah. I mean, honestly, they were designed by the Smithsonian, and we did refurbish things when they broke, and they were very good hands-on kits. And had the state not updated to completely, like, for example, we were teaching motion, but motion was in 4th grade. And we couldn't move the kit down to 3rd grade. The reading, everything else wasn't right. So had the state not adopted new steel standards, the kits that we had might have continued working. So I would anticipate that these kits that we have now purchased will be around for quite some time.
I have a question. Do the kids know when they're taking the test this year that they're going to be field testing? Like, will they get scores? How is this communicated?
So it has been communicated. Each kid's level of understanding of that, I don't know. They will get scores.
Oh, good.
The scores will not count for our No Child Left Behind, accountability, that type of thing.
Will we have an opportunity to provide feedback? We as in you?
Yeah, right. No.
No.
So the feedback that's provided is more, if you participate on a science testing committee, then you can participate through that committee, you can provide feedback.
Interesting.
Yep.
I just have one more question. There's a slide that talks about how high school will be proposing new electives next year.
Yep.
And which is great, an opportunity for dual enrollment courses. I'm wondering, at the high school level, do we engage with any other types of junior scientists, junior engineer programs? One that comes to mind is the National Society for Black Engineers. It's a junior program, and so it really focuses on high schoolers who are just interested in science. I was a part of NSBE, and I did not become a scientist, but it allowed me to meet other like-minded high schoolers across the nation. It was an opportunity for scholarships. It was an opportunity to go to conferences, to dress up, to do some resume building, all in the name of science and engineering. And so if there's opportunities for our district to engage in programs like that, I think it'd be amazing for our future scientists and engineers.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. There are some that they do participate in. Sort of, many of those things are more like a high school activity than part of the science curriculum, but off the top of my head, the Science Olympiad, the Robotics Club, there's a number of organizations that the high school has that do participate in science things, and I know that, like, when things like what you're mentioning come up, it normally comes to the guidance counselors and goes directly to the science teachers, and I often don't know as much about it.
Okay. It would just be
But I think it's a great idea, yeah.
if we could have our guidance counselors begin to reach out and seek out. That's a great way to have just that, what do you want to be when you grow up conversation.
Yep.
So.
Great idea.
See that come to our district.
Thanks.
Not so fast, Dr. Nesbitt.
I have one more thing. and then
Oh,
I'll
good,
take it.
before you go.
So I noticed on the list of potential electives for high school, there's something, misinformation in science, which I actually was very excited about. It's like an incredibly important topic, but I would love if that were somehow married with digital citizenship. And maybe it was not focused so much on the misinformation, but like science communicating, and then misinformation being a piece of it. Unless that's the hook that gets students to sign up, but like, wow.
Yep.
I just wanted to highlight, bold that.
Yeah. And these were really just brainstorm ideas, and they're always brainstorming. I mean, go out for coffee with the science department head, and we're brainstorming 20 different things in an hour. So I'm sure there will be exciting proposals coming forward.
Thank you. And I also wanted to mention, I happened to be speaking with Dr. Tomaszewski yesterday, and he mentioned that they are putting on a sort of modified Discover Day for our Best Buddies clubs, and they were going to give that a try. Was it this week, Jeff? It might have been this week, or they were continuing to plan this week.
Yeah.
Really exciting to see things continue to evolve and for them to continue to be student-centered, hands-on, and Dr. Nesbitt mentioned the joy of science. They really bring the joy to these things and to so many different audiences.
We also have 5 people presenting at the National Science Teachers Association conference in Philadelphia in 2 weeks. And I think we have 5 others going. So it's, again, just an amazing thing that, they submitted proposals and they all got accepted, and they're actually doing presentations to other science teachers. An amazing group of people.
I'll be there as an attendee, so I'll see
Awesome.
it all out. I'm excited.
That's great. Well, I did ask Dr. Nesbitt, if you would, just to remain there for a moment, and I thank Dr. Larson for her indulgence. This is Jeff's last presentation as an educator I'm going to just try and keep it together, in this district, because Jeff is retiring tomorrow. He's led this district in many ways, and since he cannot attend our retirement recognition ceremony in June, I would like to say just a few words to congratulate you this evening, Jeff. Dr. Nesbitt first served our community as a high school principal, where he hired great teachers and, in his words, got out of their way. He oversaw the implementation of a one-to-one device program at the high school, the expansion of AP course offerings, the education of countless national merit scholars, the addition of courses in all departments, the running of successful athletic and arts programs, the development of professional learning communities, and a thriving student body. And after 10 years of serving as our high school principal, Dr. Nesbitt followed his passion for science and math, which we get to hear about all the time, to become the district's K-12 STEM supervisor. This world was not new to him, as Dr. Nesbitt had previously taught physics in Owen J. Roberts before becoming a high school assistant principal in Chichester. So as STEM supervisor, he quickly demonstrated his collaboration skills by getting to know the middle and elementary school programs, staff, and students, which I think was a fun adjustment, and joining their efforts with those he already knew at the high school. Always curious, Dr. Nesbitt brought a critical perspective to the functioning of the curriculum department and never shied away from a challenge. Dr. Nesbitt conducted K-12 science and math audits, brought the MAP assessments on board at the elementary level, and ensured innovative courses at the high school level, including drone aviation, engineering to learn, and AP computer sciences, just to name a couple. He was awarded the PA Science Administrator of the Year in 2022, where I got to enjoy a lunch with him and his parents, who of course were very proud of him, as well as those who nominated him for that award. Dr. Nesbitt was also the architect of our pandemic-related online learning programs, work that served him well as he continued in that vein as a supervisor of the Haverford online learning program. As a colleague, Dr. Nesbitt is kind, generous, and thoughtful. He will question, investigate, and challenge you, all while sharing a laugh and asking about your family. We will miss Jeff's leadership, collegiality, forward thinking, critical questioning, and cheerful declarations of Happy Monday to start each week. Jeff, we wish you well in your next chapter. We thank you for all you've done to push us forward, to serve our students, to improve our systems, and to be our friend. Congratulations on your well-earned retirement.
Thank you. It's really been a pleasure working at the School District of Haverford Township. It's just an amazing place to work, and I've really appreciated everything, so thank you very much.
Fare thee well. Okay, and up next, I'm really pleased to introduce, of course, Christina Carter and her team, Dr. Crater and Dr. Adalizzi, also representing work done by Dr. Michelle Downs, and they're going to share with you this evening the results of our psychological school membership, wait, I missed an S, PS, Sense of School Membership survey results. Thank you.
Thank you. That's hard to follow. You have us a little choked up, Jen. That was a great tribute. So following up, talking about kids having a sense of belonging through a club and association, we're going to talk about that tonight. So the PSSM overview is something we're coming back with again, which is the psychological sense of school membership. We will have Dr. Natalia Adalizzi, who is the principal of Manoa, and then I don't know, we celebrated her last year when she presented for the PSSM getting her doctors, but I don't know if we've had a chance to celebrate Dr. Crater. So he is a newly minted doctor as well, so congratulations. So each year I try to share the wealth of who gets to lead our data team. So he took on that leadership this year as Dr. Adalizzi took it on last year. So in vain of talking about getting out of the way of people and letting them work, I'm going to let them get you started and I'll come back at the end. So go ahead.
All right, well, thank you, Ms. Carter. Thank you to the school board for having me this evening. So what is the PSSM? In short, it is a survey that measures adolescents' perceptions of their school sense of belonging. And it has been used for a long time. We've used it in the district for the last 5 years, but it was created in 1993, and it's been validated and really used all over the world. Last year, Ms. Carter, is that correct? Last year was our first year, right, switching? And so we used to have the Penn Graduate School's Education Catalyst Program run all of our data for us. So they would, send us a link. We would send it to students. We would send it out to process over at Penn. And several months later, we would get a data file back. That was all just stagnant. We couldn't do anything with it, right? It was all in a PDF document, and whatever they produced for us, that was what we had to work with. And so we started, really kind of shifting to having us run the team internally. And for us, what that looks like is we use a system called SPSS, which is a common social sciences statistical analysis software that allows us to really go beyond that surface level data and understand what's working better, where challenges are, and most importantly, how we can best support students and staff more in real time based on what we're learning. It also allows us to directly connect it to our equity framework, primarily Cobb and Crown Apple's Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity work, and it helps to inform our more systemic changes that support equity and inclusion within our district. And we also are able, this year we kind of continued to tailor it, work individual with each individual building. We are a district of 7 buildings, and each building has its own unique culture. And we work with the administrative team and their equity teams to, hey, what more information do you want? What can we do? And that has allowed us to grow. And that all matters because it enhances our accountability, our ability to customize. But really, I think it speaks to the value of making sure that every student feels valued and included. Here. So just a little bit, I'll give you a little bit of details about the PSSM. So what demographics questions do we ask? I think the demographic data plays a critical role for us because it's not just do students feel a sense of belonging. It helps us answer the question, does every student feel a sense of belonging? And that really drives all of our work and all of our questioning to really help drive down into the data further as to where do we need to target and where do we need to spend our efforts. So you can see here that there is a little bit of a difference between the secondary and the elementary band. This year, Ms. Carter helped us disperse it. We learned last year after many, many hours of having to separate data fields and, create new files. Ms. Carter helped us this year send it as 2 different surveys. So that was very helpful. Thank you for that. But what it did is it allows us to really look at pinpoint more areas of where belonging is strong and where more support is needed. It helps us to continue to look at, target more resources, and Matt's going to talk a little bit more about that. What it did helps inform some of our policies, some of the ideas that we bring to you guys, and then create school environments where all students feel seen, heard, and connected. So what questions are asked on the PSSM? I feel like it tells my prescription strength every time I give this presentation because the print just seems a little bit smaller every time. But there are 18 items that measure students' sense of belonging. Some of them you'll see an R next to it, and that just means that we have to reverse score it. And so most questions, you want a 5. Some questions, though, you would like a 1, but that changes how we have to look at that. And so we just put that up there just for a general understanding. It'll come up later. There are 3 key categories that PSSM puts out, and we've been able to do a little more work than this, but is identification and participation, so feeling a part of the school community, peer relationships, so perception among fitting in with your classmates, and then also teachers' connection, so the sense of supports that are available from the adults within your building. This year, we had, again, a really great turnout of students completing the PSSM survey. You can see here Haverford High School is on the left, Haverford Middle School, and then all of the elementary schools. And this is the participation for the last 3 school years that we've administered the PSSM. And then, just as a note, our enrollment changes annually, and so there are some just natural changes based on student enrollment. There is a lot on this side, but it continues to look at our top areas of belonging, being that teachers, the question is, teachers here are not interested in people like me, but that's where the reverse scoring comes in, because they rank that very low. Students overall believe that teachers are really interested in people like me, that teachers here respect me, and that many students do not wish they were in a different school. They continue to be our top areas of belonging. And then our lowest area of belonging continue to look at a lot of those peer-to-peer relationships. So people notice here I am good at something. Other students in this school take my opinion seriously, and I feel similar to most other students here. I'm actually really curious to look at this at the elementary level. As we implement wit and wisdom, there's so much of that is really looking at other people's experiences, trying to see what it was like at a certain time through a different lens. And so I'm very curious to see that as students engage in a lot of the dialogue and the writing that they're doing now that we hadn't done in the past, if that helps, especially that question number 4 of other students in the school taking opinion seriously. And I am going to pass the torch, I think, over to Mr. Crater, who was this year's, I think in the education world, they say principal researcher. So, Mr. Crater?
Thanks.
Dr. Crater, you're up.
Mr. Crater, whatever you want to call me. All right. Forgive my voice. I'm not 100% sure what it's going to do tonight, but I'll try to keep it together. Thanks again for having us tonight. For the past several months, our administrative team has been looking at this data. We took it over winter break, threw it into SPSS, ran a bunch of reports, and then we were prepared to communicate it to all the building level administrators and district leadership at the beginning of February. And since then, we've been collaborating with them, providing additional reports, breaking down some subcategories where administrators felt like they wanted to take a deeper dive into some of the reports that we were providing. Before I get into all of the reports, I just want to share a little bit about what they are, because I'm not going to sit here and go over each individual bar graph, but each graph presents the average belonging scores for different groups, providing insights into how students from various backgrounds experience belonging. We have been examining trends over time to identify patterns, such as whether certain groups experience steady increases or fluctuations in their sense of belonging. And for all groups, the number of students, as Natalia was kind of mentioning, fluctuate throughout the course of the year. Identifying with each category also fluctuates and may vary, which can influence the data from year to year. And smaller groups may show more drastic shifts in their overall sense of belonging with the number of participants, whereas your larger subgroups have a larger sample size, may experience smaller fluctuations from year to year. Our administrative team has been identifying noticeable differences and commonalities among belonging scores from year to year. Like we said earlier, this is standalone data, but the benefit of us doing it in-house is that we've been keeping data files nice and organized over the previous years, so we're able to compare from year to year now and see how our subgroups are making changes, which is nice. Okay, jumped ahead here. What you see up on the presentation here is the overall sense of belonging by race and ethnicity. We organized the bar graphs, so it shows the lowest sense of belonging on the left-hand side with the highest sense of belonging on the right-hand side for each high school, middle school, and elementary school subgroup, identifying in various race and ethnicities. You see the high school, and this is similar with the other demographic charts as well. There's way more options for the secondary group to choose from at the demographic section of the PSSM survey, was the elementary surveys. You'll see less option for the students to pick from. Here's the bar graphs, overall sense of belonging by religion. Again, what we do with this, it's a little bit easier for the high school and middle school to look at this as an administrative team because it's our data, but what we did last month at the beginning of February is we actually gave every building level administrator their own data. So Natalia at Manoa, she didn't just get, she got the elementary overall data, but she also got specific data just for Manoa, and that was similar across all 5 elementary schools. This graph shows the PSSM scores for different gender groups. Again, you see a few more options for the secondary levels. It's the same setup as the previous groups, as the previous demographics. And then 2 more here. We have overall sense of belonging by LGBTQ identification. The secondary had this on their survey. The elementary did not have this on their survey. And that's similar with the next slide with the special ed, students that identified with special ed services in our district. So we're connecting our work on belonging. Natalia mentioned a little bit earlier our work with Cobb and Crown Apple and the and Culture of Dignity framework, which emphasizes creating a culture where students feel valued and respected. Their model focuses on 4 key principles that foster belonging. 1 is feeling accepted, which is the foundation of belonging, where students feel part of their school community. Feeling appreciated, when students feel valued by peers and teachers, they engage more fully in their educational experience. Feeling treated fairly, fairness ensures that every student has equal opportunities to succeed, and feeling validated. Validation makes students feel heard and understood, contributing to the emotional and academic growth of their experience. These principles are vital for creating a thriving school environment. Our school district leadership is engaged in professional development over the school year and a lot over the summer at our summer admin retreat. Using the 18-question survey, we collect data to identify the strengths and areas of improvement, which is what we target specifically over the summertime. This data informs our school goals and our initiatives and all the fun stuff that we do in our buildings. Fostering belonging is an ongoing commitment, and by using this data, we're able to guide decisions that ensure that our students feel appreciated, accepted, validated, and treated fairly. More graphs. Our belongingness factors that I just went over, broke it down here by each 7 schools. You'll notice that the treated fairly is rated the highest among our 7 schools, while feeling validated is an area that needs more attention. And what's interesting about this graph, and a graph that Natalia brought up at the beginning, is the data is very similar. Our needs and our areas of strength are similar, almost identical to last year's. And we had a lot of conversation around that, and there's research that shows that it takes 3 to 5 years to make change or see differences, and so just keeping that in mind. Looking at relationships, again, some of our strengths in our district is centered around our teacher relationships, the adults in our building, and that is well illustrated here on this graph. All right, here's the fun slide. There's a lot of stuff up here, but on the right, you can see a table showing the cohorts by grade and year, while the graph is on the left. Looking at the graph, for instance, cohort D was in 4th grade during the 21-22 school year. Obviously, in the following year, 2022-2023, they moved to 5th grade, and this progression continues. Cohort G tracks students' sense of belonging over time. These students were in 7th grade during the 21-22 school year, and 8th grade the following school year during 22-23. Our table reveals that their average sense of belonging, measured by the PSSM score, tends to decline as students age and get into higher grades. This trend is well documented, as research shows that secondary students often feel less connected due to increased academic pressure, peer competition, many more teachers that they see throughout the school day and throughout the year. In the district's overall notice and wonderings, our district's overall sense of belonging has reached 3.97, which is the highest since our COVID years. The transitions between 5th to 6th grade, elementary to middle school, and 8th to 9th grade do not affect students' sense of belonging. Students feel their relationships with their teachers are crucial for their sense of belonging. As a leadership team, we'll keep working on enhancing students' feelings of belonging with their peers. Students rated fairness as the highest, though feelings of being validated still needing areas of improvement. Addressing sense of belonging. To address the sense of belonging, we plan to collaborate closely with school leaders, as we already are. We'll align our data findings with the current initiatives to integrate student feedback into ongoing efforts. For example, we'll continue using responsive classroom in our elementary schools and restorative practices in our secondary schools. We'll keep auditing our curriculum to make sure that it reflects the diverse identities and experiences of our students. This is my favorite slide. It shows like everything that we're doing that is contributing to the success that we're having with our students and their sense of belonging in the district. Our elementary schools, we're boosting students' belonging through various initiatives. We offer leadership roles like peer helpers, mentors, and buddies, plus activities and events backed by active parent-teacher organizations. Clubs, special events, grade level buddies are big contributors too. In our secondary schools, we've got the DCIU Coalition for Student Voice and Agency events and the Student Leadership Institute, which both enhance belonging. High schoolers benefit from high schoolers and middle schoolers benefit from extracurriculars, wellness days, activities fairs, advisory periods, and expanded opportunities. Across K-12, programs like Recess Referees, high school mentors, STEM days, and various clubs help build a strong sense of belonging. And Mrs. Carter, on to you.
Thank you, Dr. Grader. So just re-emphasizing some of the leadership opportunities that our students get to take advantage of and where we really get to see them flourish and grow. They were mentioned, but I want to kind of go through them and how they keep building each year. So one of our big ones is we participate in the DCIU's Coalition for Student Voice and Agency, quite a long name. And originally, our students were participating in the Student Forum when it first started in its iteration. And then they added on the Future Educators Academy. Then they added on this year the AI in schools, where you kind of heard a little bit tonight about it and before, but our students are really getting to to talk about it, collaborate, share their voices around it, and we'll actually in April be presenting to administrators and school leaders about their findings and their understanding of AI. And when we look at them in these groups between the Student Forum Where It's Belonging, the Future Educators, and AI, and I visit each group, like I'm going tomorrow morning to go be with them again at the IU, they are really leaders, not just in our district, but across our county, because they're there with other districts where they're getting to glean from them, and then it challenges their way of thinking as well, and then they talk about their sense of belonging at their school compared to what it is at other schools. So that's really a great opportunity. We're hoping that next year we learned about a gaming opportunity for students, where our students who identify and feel a sense of belonging in that space, where they kind of learn how to build the machines and various aspects of the engineering side of gaming. We're hoping we can get some students involved in it as well, and those are for our high school students. The other areas where our students really get to shine and grow their leadership and develop their sense of belonging to figure out how to help other students back at the school also have that is through DVCEEs, known as DVCE. If you see that pop up, it's the same thing. They just dropped one E right now, but is the Student Leadership Institute for the middle and the high school. The middle one had to be rescheduled because of the Eagles Parade, so that'll be coming in May. But our middle schoolers, a group of them also did get to participate in the new event that they had this fall, where they weren't our typical students you would see getting to participate, but they show leadership in other ways, and so we want to enhance that leadership and help them find that place within the school to belong. So overall, this really is the work that every single school is engaging in. You got to hear the quantitative and the qualitative of how our schools really are continuing to work on the path of helping every student feel like they belong in every single space. I also always want to give context when it comes to surveys, because I think surveys matter. This year, when we gave the survey, we didn't think about necessarily the impact of the election at the same time of giving the survey. So when we looked at the numbers of students who didn't want to identify information, you always have to think about what's the political context that it's being given in and where students feel comfortable. So when we saw that number of more saying that they didn't want to identify themselves in area, it's something for us to now even go back and think about, like, well, what made them maybe feel uncomfortable to be able to identify who they are, their religion or race or whatever it is during that time, so that we can continue to work on their sense of belonging. But overall, we really are excited about it, and even looking at the growth at our high school and seeing the numbers go up over time is really encouraging to see that work, so we hope to continue to see it grow. So does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. I have a question about how the special ed students are surveyed. I mean, I see that some of the, I think it's maybe, I'm looking at this slide.
I can take that one.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So many of our students who they're giving an alternate mode to be able to voice. So sometimes it's like a yes, no. Sometimes it's like, for some students, it might be green, red. Sometimes they're being prompted by an adult in their classroom. So rather than having to speak, they might just have to use a touch for a yes or for a no. And so we really do try our best to hear from all voices and try and accommodate and adapt the mode at which students are able to deliver their responses to those questions.
Well, what about the questions themselves? When we looked at the list of the 18 questions, I mean, are the questions themselves differentiated in some kind?
At times, they have to be, right? Because, you know, you might simplify the language of it, right? And so instead of saying, people notice when I'm good at something, you might say, my teacher, even people, right? Even just that generalized term, my teacher, I actually was in the classroom we were doing this year. I'm trying to think of the language that the teacher changed it to. My teacher thinks I'm good at this. Yes, no. Right? And so it is hard because we're taking a very validated, you know, as you all know, it's a validated measure. And so we're trying to do the best that we can to hear those voices. How that translates, though, into our bigger picture is where, you know, all research kind of has that gap.
Is there a parental component to?
There.
Okay.
So we ask parents beforehand, do they want to have their students take it, or if they want them to opt out. I will say, we do get a large number of our families that say that they don't necessarily feel it's the right test for their students at the time, so they will opt out. But with the question that you're asking, I am now interested more, because we try to keep it, since it's validated with the same questions, but exploring maybe what that might look like that's in a different capacity for our students who may need it changed. That might be something for us to start engaging in, as we now have brought it in-house and have an established routine. That can be something that we look at further with our special education department.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about, I mean, this isn't just about my child, but in the context of a child with autism or a child who takes things very literally, changing a question and saying, my teacher thinks I'm good at this, you are asking one very specific question that doesn't capture the whole experience. Like, I understand how difficult this is. Is there a part of this that maybe you can put in a component for if a parent has, comments or an ABC or something, to kind of also like offer feedback? Because, especially when we're talking about SPED, we're not just talking about that child, we're talking about that parent, right? Because that parent is in the program with their student.
They're learning together, they're a team. It's a team effort.
And if you need to know if a child belongs, you ask them, does your teacher like you? But you call the mom and say, what's it like when they come home? Because verbal or nonverbal, that's where you get the information. So maybe we can consider that as, a side capture, so that.
That's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah, I as a SPED parent in the district, I feel excluded from a lot of the surveys. I feel like there is information that's captured for those high-functioning, prettier disabilities, right? And so I would like to see us be thoughtful about how we capture those not-so-pretty disabilities, right?
No, thank you for sharing it in that sense, because I didn't necessarily think about it from the lens you're thinking about it, and can see how valuable it would be for parents to participate with the student, because they understand them and they are learning along the same path with them. So I think that's something that we can all look at and collaborate to figure out what is an alternative option now that we're more settled into it, that we could take on that challenge. And then we do have the ability that if we need to, we can add additional questions at the end, as you're saying, for parents to give some additional feedback. So we can continue to look at that and grow in that area. So thank you.
Or also make sure that when we're differentiating the questions, we're differentiating the same questions, right? And so teacher A is saying, my teacher likes me, teacher B is saying, I have friends here. Like, we really don't capture the nuance that for a student who has learning differences that takes everything literal, like you are missing something. So I don't want to poo-poo the attempt that was made to capture it, but I just want to say that there is a bigger picture to make this data meaningful for the whole community.
It's true. We say we want every student to feel like they belong in this district in every space. So if we're not finding that to be a space where we can capture it properly, then we need to do something to adjust it. So, thank you.
For our students who are English learners, are the questions translated if that's necessary, or do they have that language support?
So we use SurveyMonkey, which allows them to drop down and have it translated. I can tell you right now, I am not sure how the ESL teachers are doing it. That would be something I would have to investigate into it more, or our multilingual learners teachers, so I'm trying to shift my language. But that would be something I can get more information for you and see what's happening.
That'd be great. And I'm just wondering, too, about the cultural nuance of some of the questions. Like, most teachers at this school are interested in me, or the teachers here respect me, just based on students' previous schooling experiences in other settings. Culturally, those might not even be questions that really, it's like, should the teacher, like, I don't know, like, that's, it's new. Whereas here, there's more of like that fluid relationship where the teacher and student work together. It's less hierarchical. So just, I'm not sure what PSSM has in terms of the research that they bring to this for cultural.
I will say it is given around the world, so it has been translated, so I don't see why it would be difficult for us to go and find those translations if they're saying it's translated in multiple countries, to be able to try to find that. I'm saying it now, hopefully it's easy, but since it is around the world and it is one of those validated tests in that way, I would be interested in seeing how we can find it and see how we can adapt it for that group of students as well.
And so I know that you touched a little bit on regarding the trend for middle school and high school students. And you mentioned some of the different ways that the administration looks at it. And I'm just curious, how often are we trying to incorporate student voice outside of even the DCIU program, but like on a regular basis?
Do you want to take that over since you're here directly from the middle school?
Yeah, from the, at least from the middle school with student voice, we have students engaging, kind of driving the direction of a lot of what we do, especially when it comes to like our extracurricular clubs and activities. One of the best things that we do on a daily basis is we start our day off with morning announcements that students totally run, and they kind of drive like how that happens. Another example is the 40-ish clubs or activities that we have in our building. Most of those are student created, so we want to put our kids in a position at the middle school where they feel empowered to get involved in something that they enjoy doing outside of the classroom. Extracurricular clubs and activities and sports are the best way for students to be involved with like-minded peers and to disconnect from the academics a little bit and be around being around their community, the people they enjoy being around the most. At the high school, I don't know if anyone wants to hit on the high school. I mean, I can
talk
yeah.
to some of the high school, and Jen probably can too. So the high school also has a lot of clubs, especially a lot of culture clubs. And then I could tell you the amount I'm at the high school, the amount that the students they're voicing their interests and concerns at the assistant principal offices. So they are not a quiet bunch, sharing what they would like to see or what they would like to see changed. Or if we're walking through the hallway, they're telling me about their homework or telling me about something they would like to see changed in their class because they're interested. So they are voicing it. I know that there are other structures that the high school does do, but they are quite a vocal bunch. So they're always open to hearing their feedback, I know, for the high school team.
If I can hit on one thing about the middle school too, because I can't leave here tonight without talking about them, but our PAG group, our peer assistance group that directly supports our life skills and autistic support group, our students in those programs are unbelievable. And just maybe a month ago, we had a group from middle school from Bucks County come down to learn specifically about what we're doing in our school. And Dr. Horan, myself, and the other administrators, we said nothing. We said nothing during that time. And it was like the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in this PAG group that we're telling all the information, everything we do in our middle school to support that population of students. It was like an incredible opportunity to just sit there and watch them interact with that group from Bucks County. So, wanted to say that. I think Natalia wants to say stuff about elementary.
And I think, too, that the part of student voice, and you saw it on one slide, one of the things that we really have been trying to do, you see it all the way to the right, one of the things that we've really been trying to do, and Dr. King, it kind of hit on your point a little bit from our previous presentation, is bringing our own high school students to the elementary schools, right? And we all do this as different elementary schools in various capacities. We work with something called recess referees, and so they're high school students who might have a study hall second or third block during our lunches. And we train, Mr. DeCina works with them at the high school, and they're trained to hey, how do we moderate recess? How can I learn how to play gaga ball and navigate, which is a very competitive activity, by the way, right? But hearing it from an adult is one thing, but it's now our elementary students talking to each other, but now also elementary students talking to an 11th grader who maybe went to that high school and can maybe see themselves, in the future. We do the same thing. Our Miss McNulty runs a high school mentors program, and so there's high school students coming to, meet with our 4th and 5th graders about just, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? What does that look like? What are you excited for? What are you nervous for in middle school? Oh, I was at the middle school, and kind of talking them through that. We have a really robust child development program at our high school, students who are, future educators, and as you all know, we really need future educators, and so they're getting into our elementary schools and working alongside our teachers and our students to help navigate. And so I think that that's the other piece, really trying to respect student voices and bridge that K-12, because we have just so much knowledge, even within our own community. We talk about STEM Day and how exciting that is. That Monday, when kids come back from STEM Day, they're talking about how cool the high school is, how awesome it is, they got to touch bugs, and just seeing that light in their eye. And so what we do as elementary principals on a regular basis is then use that information for student voice to say, hey, okay, they're really excited about this. What can we do here now at the elementary school to try and help bridge that gap? And to try and really be very intentional about, hey, they have a voice, but we're also going to listen to it and make changes based on what it is that they're asking for. One of the things that I talk to all of the elementary principals about in preparation for this is we always have a really large group of kids who want to do student council, right? But there might only be 5 or 6 positions on student council. And so then how do we take all of those kiddos who maybe didn't make student council and give them really cool leadership opportunities at the elementary, whether that is being like a peer helper in gym class, whether that is I'm the student, the student tour guide leader, so we have a new student coming, and now the student, rather than me giving the tour of Manoa Elementary School, who better to hear it from than another 4th or 5th grader who has been at the school and is able to share that space. And so, and kids love those opportunities, and I think it develops like further leadership. So I think it's just listening, but then really trying to act on what it is that the kids are asking for and what. And I think you can see in our PSSM data that our teachers have really done a really good job of forming those relationships. And so kids are willing to tell them, hey, I like this. Hey, I don't like this. And they do respond. And I think that that is kind of evidenced in that data, which is a positive. Always room for improvement, but definitely a highlight.
So, I think all of those things are wonderful. And so anytime we're having the ability to incorporate student voice, I think it's really important. When I was at Manoa to come and read, I had 2 student guides waiting for me in the office. They took me to where I needed to be, but also, they introduced themselves to me. We shook hands. We talked about their favorite classes. So it was an opportunity for them to use their voice in other ways. And I think sometimes if we can just have those genuine, authentic experiences for our children, our students, those are things that they can build on. It may not necessarily look like a project or an assignment, something I'm being judged for, or an assessment. It's just me using my voice the way that I know how, and this person receiving me and respecting me. That's a sense of belonging too. And so those moments are extremely important at every level. And so I would hope that as a district, we are intentional about finding a way for every child to use their voice and for it to be received in a way that's meaningful to them.
Thanks for sharing.
And I definitely appreciate you saying it, because we know we're at the point where we have this survey, but it's so important for us to start taking the information from a survey and actually having a conversation with the students and starting to move in that direction. And building principals have been identifying their 2 focus areas that they're working on. And as we say, we still need to move those numbers forward, but that can be definitely something we look at. I know we're moving our strategic plan over to a new set of years, but with us moving it forward, that is definitely something that I can share with our groups that's starting to do that we really have to shift this from a survey to an actual what are your concerns? Why do you not feel validated? What can we do differently for you to help you get there? So creating that authentic space for them. You're welcome.
guys. I think that's a tricky conversation, right? Because you don't want to be in a situation where the student feels like they need to say what you want to hear. So how do you make it that authentic conversation? I guess that ties into my other question about, so I'm looking at students who may have scored below 3 on their sense of belonging. Is there individual outreach to those students based on the test results, or is that triangulated with other things teachers and staff are seeing, just to kind of talk with that student and see what they need?
Sorry, you want to take this?
No,
you're good. So the survey information is collected anonymously, right? But what it does do is it does ask the conversation, what students or groups of students do we need to have conversations with, right? And then that's how we begin to triangulate that data and get more of that qualitative, person-to-person talking in a comfortable way of what do we need to do better at? And sometimes it's also reaching out to families.
Great, thank you so much. And I just want to shout out to Matt, who clearly isn't feeling well, and thank you for being here today and doing this. But also, you noticed Dr. Adalizzi, who will remind you is in her first year of a principalship, although she is a seasoned administrator, was also on the technology committee, is presenting this evening. Dr. Crater also co-leads a new administrator induction with his colleagues. So the people you're seeing in front of you are involved in so many facets of our district activities that I just wanted to say a special thank you both for being here this evening and for all you do to contribute to our district, especially for this work here this evening. So thank you for that. Those conclude the presentations. I do have one information item that I just wanted to sort of, it literally is just information. There's nothing to vote on. There's nothing, it's just sort of wanting to keep the board committee and the public apprised of some conversations that have been happening at the elementary level. So I'm going to just take this opportunity to share some work that our elementary principals have been engaging in around the grouping of students. So it's been our most recent practice, really almost the whole time I've been here anyway, to level students according to test scores into two groups in our upper elementary grades. These levels are known as grade level and enrichment. For math, this occurs in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and for an ELA, it occurs in grades 4 and 5. So for the past several years now, our principals have been gathering information regarding best practices when it comes to grouping, learning what neighboring and high-performing districts have been doing, and finding out more about how our own teachers and students are working through these levels and what their perspectives are. So because of what they've learned from these inquiries, and coupled with the implementation of Wit and Wisdom, which is now a knowledge-based program, and our now firmly established MTSS, or what they're calling WIN time, what I need time now, the principals are considering changing that grouping practice for 4th and 5th grade English language arts to move from those leveled or heterogeneous groups to unleveled. They're leveled homogeneous groups right now to unleveled heterogeneous groups. Again, that would be for grades 4 and 5 for English language arts. So some of the advantages that the principals have cited for doing this include ensuring that all students have access to the same high-quality learning experiences, regardless of any disparities in access to early literacy experiences that may have resulted in that leveling. Using shared texts, which is something they now do, with Wit and Wisdom, so that students who struggle with decoding can still engage in discussions and build oral language skills, as well as benefit from teacher and peer modeling, as well as allowing students to learn from one another and develop leadership and collaborative skills. So they've met with some groups of teachers this year who have also pointed out that there are supports for differentiation actually written into the curriculum, as well as into the curriculum resource of Wit and Wisdom. That enables our teachers to support students within the ELA classroom at varying levels. And additionally, as I mentioned, MTSS, or WIN time, is that structure continues to allow really targeted instructions for students daily that can give students reinforcement where they need it and give other students enrichment where they need it. So there already is this other period of time during the day where they can get sort of the more what I need time. So principals and teachers are going to continue to consider a potential move to heterogeneous or unleveled groups for 4th and 5th grade English language arts and get a little bit more input from some additional stakeholders over the next few weeks. I just want to note very clearly that we are only talking about changes to ELA for the upcoming school year, not math. We do expect to be able to come back in May with a final decision, just to keep everybody informed about where they're landing and how they intend to proceed for grouping students for ELA in the 25-26 school year. So that's that information item. And with that, that concludes the presentations that we have this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Sexton. Sure. Okay, now we have time for public comment. Would anyone in the public like to speak this evening? Okay, if you could just come to the podium, state your name, confirm your residency, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
I'm Rich McGlure. I still live at 1246 Dill Road, and I really just came here to prove to you that I can be allowed out 3 nights in a row. And I just got my text message about 10 minutes ago, when will you be home? And then I got answered, and I got a response, I'm waiting. So I'm here, and I spoke for this. However, I'm glad I came, because everything you talked about today is dear to my heart. And when I was riding to here in my car, I heard a report on KYW about the discussion going on in our Department of Education and the ACLU about the edicts coming out of the Department of Education are unenforceable. And I agree with that, and that would be my legal opinion too, because my grandson depends on DEI, because he learned how to talk by technology assimilating the videos he watches on a big iMac we have in our kitchen and our dining room, and he learned to talk because of being included at Manoa. And I guarantee you, Johnny has a sense of belonging at Manoa. Matter of fact, in the conference when my son went to 5th grade, the teacher told him that he thinks Johnny is the most popular kid in Manoa Elementary School. And that culture is what got him to talk. However, Mr. Crater, we do not have the same feeling about the middle school. Okay? We feel like this. All you want us to do is put Johnny on the bus in the morning and get him off in the afternoon. We had communication every day from his teachers at Manoa Elementary School. When Johnny had a meltdown, we got a text from his one-on-one Mrs. S., who was like his mother. Johnny doesn't have a mother. My wife has been his mother for the last 11 years, okay? We got a text message from Mrs. K constantly when Johnny had difficulty in school or needed our assistance. We get no communication from your school or your teachers, and we're not happy about it, okay? I do not think that Johnny feels that he belongs in that school like he did in Manoa. I don't feel like belonging to your school like I did at Manoa, and that is the honest truth. And although Johnny learned to talk, and the best methodology I have discovered about teaching him the reading is when he scripts something from a movie that he's watching on an iMac tabletop, like, oh no, shucks, let's get out of here. I write it on the whiteboard, and I ask him to read it with me. That is the best methodology I have used to teach him beginning reading. Now, at Manoa, he got a reading specialist.
Mr. McGlure, your 3 minutes
All right,
is up.
but wait a second, I'm saying this.
Could I ask
All
someone
right.
from administration to follow up with you?
Pardon?
Could I ask someone?
No,
from
you
administration
can listen
follow
to
up with
what I have to say.
you? Okay, could you?
Okay, I'll
wrap it
finish up in
Thank
1
you.
minute.
Appreciate it.
Okay? He had a reading specialist, Mrs. Gallagher, for 2 years, in which he made significant progress in his reading. He does not have a reading specialist at your school because of the administrative errors in implementing his IEP. Out of all the technology issues that you raised today, right, I want to say 2 things from my wife. Is all we want for Johnny is a reading specialist who is certified as a reading specialist and in special ed, who wants to meet the challenge of teaching Johnny and any other kid in his situation to read. That's what we want most out of this district. And if we don't have a reading specialist for him that's willing to take that child, I am asking you to hire one who will. Advertise for someone who wants to take up that challenge, because he is not going to learn to read without a reading specialist. And I look at that kid go to sleep every night. And also, my wife says this to me time and time again, is all I hear them talk about is the typical kids and never the autistic kids. Thank you for what you said, Dr. Lee, tonight, because I feel the same way. And that comes from my heart, and that comes from my experience as a reading specialist in the school district of Philadelphia. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, and with that, that takes us to the end of our agenda for this evening. We are finished. Have a great night, everyone.